tomato, no,
It's
tomato.
a little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If it's
tomato.
a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
lickety
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb!
Dis-
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato, no,
It's a
tomato.
little
If
tomato.
it's thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato,
Mom,
no,
get some
tomato.
shitty
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No,
Disgusting.
you're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato,
Mom,
no,
get some
tomato.
shitty
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato,
Mom,
no,
get some
tomato.
shitty
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato,
Mom,
no,
get some
tomato.
shitty
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis- Tomato.
But tomato,
Mom,
no,
get some
tomato.
shitty
If
tomato.
it's a thick in the slice of
Dumb.
tomato. No, you're dumb.
Disgusting.
You're dumb.
Dis-
All right, I think we're live. Sheridan, you still here?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the live.
All right. Let me see if you tell me if you see it on the stream. And if or the music is too loud or anything. Actually, I think I can turn that down a little bit.
Yeah, did you put it on? 'Cause I
Yeah.
don't see anything.
Wait, is stream not changing?
No, it's still your video.
Okay.
There you go. It's
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I think it's working. All right, dope. Okay, so for those of you guys in chat, I'll bring you up so I can see you. Okay, yeah, so I'm William. This is my workshop tutorial about combat animation and just a lot of very body mechanics heavy kind of animations. All right, they can't hear me. Great.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, dope. Yeah, so this is just going to be about like very combat heavy, very action heavy kinds of animation, and the workflow that I try to use. Audio's real quiet. Wait, am I really quiet? As in like my voice? Music's supposed to be kind of low. What's going on? These two are deafened in Discord. I don't know what's going on. Alright, I don't want to start. You see the PowerPoint? Oh, there's a big delay. Okay. Audio sounds good. Alright, dope. Alright, Sheridan, come back to me. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, I guess I will just start. Sheridan, if you see anything in the chat. Hello? What's going on? Sounds good. Okay, dope. So, like I said, this is my swanky Google Drive's PowerPoint presentation. But yeah, I am William, and this is my tutorial. So, just a couple of things before we start. I graduated just under a year ago. I've been working at Survivor, which is a VR VR company up in Dallas here, also headed by a couple of other UTD alums. And basically what we do is we make police training simulators for police stations both in Dallas, in Texas, and just kind of around the country. Obviously, my words do not represent that of my employer, but just for the sake of that, that's out of the way. And just second of all, I'm not really an expert on anything, I don't think. This is just kind of my workflow. We're going to be talking through some examples from like Blizzard, from Riot, and so forth, that I think are really good and provide a lot of insight into the kinds of things that you should try to work into your own animations. And this is just my workflow. You can pick and choose the kinds of things that you want and things that work for you. But this is just how I try to do things right now. So I think that's good. And before I start rambling on so that there is some coherence to this presentation, this is basically what it's going to look like. I'm going to go through some more high-level stuff, like what makes a good fight scene, what makes good like combat, what does that really look like? And that's going to be a combination of like animation fundamentals, characters, and then at the very end, I'm going to go through my workflow. I'm going to give you like a short demo of like how I would set things up, and then just more resources at the very end that I think that everyone should get to know and will hopefully be helpful to everyone. So yeah, that's going to be the general outline of this presentation. Okay, I don't know what everyone's like level of or familiarity with animation is. If you don't know what these are, don't worry, we're not going to be going through all of these. This is a lot. But there are if you know what these are, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to follow what I'm saying, because I'm gonna probably be using a lot of these terms throughout this talk. The first couple things just the main things that we're going to be focusing on right now, and what we have time for, is going to be like the timing, like how you space out the keys. This is a short little example, an arc, and what that really means. There's a follow through, and then at the very end, squash and stretch. People have probably heard about the squash and stretch. That one's like probably the first one, and also arguably, I don't know, the most famous. But yeah, these four things are going to be kind of the center of the talk for this time around. So this is just an example character, okay? This is a rig, a nondescript character, but there are a couple of traits that I think about when I'm animating this character, and I would only animate this character in a specific way, right? So like there's a lot of like, I guess like ninja garb and whatnot on this character, right? A lot of black, so you think like stealth, right? So the ways that I would go about animating this kind of character would be like, oh, okay, so she's supposed to be nimble if she's like a ninja, right? You're supposed to use like a lot of agility, not really a lot of brute strength, right? And so that translates differently to how I would animate different characters like Reinhardt or Genji. I'm assuming some people have played Overwatch, but yeah, just the general build of the characters and the rigs will change how you approach each scene. I have a couple more of examples of this, if I can bring them up. I will explain what this website is in a bit. But a lot of the body mechanics has like a lot of acting baked into it. And everyone sort of lands different. These are my two very different examples. This is like Genji from one of the cinematic trailers. He lands, and you can kind of tell that he's supposed to be like super quiet, right? There's not much. The ground like doesn't even move whenever he lands. But hello. And then on the very opposite end of the spectrum, you have someone like Reinhardt from the other cinematic trailer, where he lands and it's like, all right, you can see all this like effects cluttering the screen, and he's got this huge arc coming down right here. Yeah, it's just very different. So the way that you animate each character, you utilize very different aspect or certain parts of the fundamentals over each other. And yeah, that's mostly the high level stuff that I want to go through. But to elaborate more on some of these things, timing and rhythm is super important. Why do I not have permission? Hold on. Okay. Timing and rhythm is super important as well. So when I am approaching a action shot, hold on, bring this up so I can play. When I'm approaching an action shot that has like a lot of camera movements, what you can do, because that character that I just showed you, that like ninja cat character or whatever, has I think like 124 controls or something. It's a lot. So what you can do is you can just bring in polygons as a stand-in, so you can kind of get the idea of the shot. You can kind of get the feel, like the base rotation of this character. And then like, so say like you want him to spin around the pole even faster, or you want him to do it slower so that you can accentuate certain poses and whatnot. This is really helpful to divide up the timing that you're trying to do from crafting cool poses. At least for me personally, when there's a really complex shot like this, I kind of get lost in the poses, and I spend a lot of time like readjusting and like breaking the poses, only to try to have to put them back together again once I've readjusted the timing, and it's a whole thing. I spend a lot of time just like wasting, or just spend a lot of time, like wasting a lot of time. So this method, you can kind of separate this too. You can get the timing right, and then you get the poses. Yeah, so here's that example again. And then here, let me see if I can find another example. I did have one more. Hold on. This will want to pull up. Yeah, so this is just really good. This is also really good in the animation workplace when you're working at a studio, per se, because you have to do a lot of iterations on these kinds of shots before you actually get to something that your director or your supervisor will like. Actually, wait, hold on. This is not it. Yeah, so you end up spending a lot of time. So this way, with this method also, you can reiterate very, very quickly over a certain period of time before you get too attached to those poses, and be like, oh, I like don't want to change the timing anymore, even though I think it could look better because I have this like cool pose in the middle and like frame 45. Like, yeah. So this is an example by Kyle Figgins off of his website. This was a contract that he was doing for a client. These were the boards that he was given. And each time, starting from here, this is what he was doing. So he started with this proxy rig, which is basically just a name for a rig that like has the same proportions as your final character, but like doesn't slow down your scenes because it's literally just a couple polygons, and it animates with that. So and then he's adjusting the set layout here, and then later when the client wants something different, he can very easily go from this to this. And now he's like adding in the final character. This is him doing a polish pass where you can see like he's adding a little bit of shake to the legs as he comes down the roof. Slides down, hits certain poses, does a flip. This is him using the cube later on. I guess because he's a more experienced animator, he doesn't necessarily have to do this. He can just do the posing and the timing at the same time. But it does do good things for playback. Like if your super heavy rig is like bogging down your scene and you're only getting like 15 frames per second on playback, like that sucks. So it's good to be able to switch these things out and hide some certain geometries of the rig and not have to deal with it if you're like in this case where he was later animating the dragon character. So yeah, this is like a really good workflow for dynamic shots and a lot of action, a lot of like body mechanics heavy stuff. That's what he does. That's what a lot of other animators that I've talked to do for these kinds of shots. Yeah, so this way you can iterate very quickly and not be too attached to your poses, because if you only have 11 controls, there's no way you're going to spend that much time working on those poses. And also it hides away certain things like the hands, the fingers, like if there's cloth geometry, like on this character, like there's 3 different controls for this sash right here. And you know what? I don't even want to talk about the jacket. That's there's way too many controls for that. But yeah, you can hide those things, but still craft very readable poses that way. So yeah, that's timing. Once you move from timing and you have something like kind of rough down, there's a couple of things that I like to do for arcs, right? So this PNG, right, pretty much holds the essence of what I'm saying. So like nothing's gonna move straight, like up, like frame 1 to 2 is just like left translation or whatever. Like it's not gonna actually work like that. When you have stuff in real life, they always move in arcs. They always form circles, or they move smoothly, right? And so there's a couple of things I will go through later in my demo to make sure that I get these kinds of arcs. But this is something that comes through pretty much every part of the animation. One sec, I'm gonna be looking for something. Here, I'm gonna let this play. Oh, actually, something that I skipped on the character part. There are more obvious things like the Genji landing and like versus Reinhardt landing kind of shots, but there's also some stuff that's like way more subtle that you can begin to work into your body mechanics shots. So in this example right here, I'm just gonna let this play a couple times. Yeah, so each character has a very different reaction. So I think they just blew up some robot. This character, I believe, is supposed to be way more inexperienced, right? So she's busy doing a cheer, and then she gets hit full of snow. And then the other characters that I hope everyone's played Overwatch so that this makes sense. But I believe these 2 characters are tanks or something. But they barely move, right? When this stuff comes out, like she just puts her shield out. Like this guy doesn't even move. I think there's just some keep alive being done on his animation, but like he doesn't even move, right? The Tracer has to like turn her whole head, and so does Winston. But Genji, who's supposed to be like kind of a ninja person, right? He's like positioned himself behind the big guy and like only turns his head. He doesn't move very much. So these are the kinds of things that will sell a character, and people try very, very hard to work into their not just combat animation, but just like into their body mechanics in general. Because even though a character isn't talking, the way that they move and the way that they react to their environment still says a whole lot about who that character is. And you really want to be able to take moments like this to showcase that. So each person's individual reaction is very different. All right, one sec. So yeah, there is that. I'm going to show you another video demonstrating to you what I mean by arcs. So this shot that I'm about to upload is a shot done by an animator on Twitter. There are actually a lot of animators on Twitter that will post their work. Honestly, I don't really know why. Because Twitter compression is like pretty awful and it bumps the video down to like 360p sometimes. But there are just a lot of animators on Twitter. That's a very good place to go if you're looking for either inspiration or just like other cool stuff to look at. So this is something that I found on Twitter, if it will load. Here, actually, in this little, let me check the chat, see if anyone has any questions so far. Hopefully, I haven't lost you guys. Comfortable saying, like, what is your experience with animation, and like, how much stuff have you guys done? Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay. Well, actually, you know what? While I'm waiting for that to roll in, I'm gonna start this. So this is someone got a Genji rig on Twitter and just started doing these animations for it, right? I'm gonna thumb through this, or I'm gonna just let this play. You can already kind of see some of the smear frames. That is like super stretchy, right? I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here with that's like a squash and stretch type deal. But there is a lot of really good stuff in here. So like the way that this kunai stretches, like there's very clear arcs in this to show motion and to show like the fact that he's like really pulling on this. And he's got a couple of smear frames over here, right? Like this is super stretchy, super good work. Each time he throws the kunai, or what is it, shuriken? I don't know, honestly. There's something that changes, and like even this arm here is being stretched to make these arcs. This is another example. So when he comes up, he jumps, pulls the body through, right? Like this is super insane, but this is super fun to go frame by frame. So now he's got this like super large arc here. Oh my god, I cannot draw with a mouse. Yeah, super strong arc over here where he's like really pulling, and like these frames seem super weird whenever you slow them down, right? But when you play them back to back, they all kind of make sense. They kind of contribute to this feeling that the character's super energetic and super nimble, right? Even though some of these frames are like insane, right? Like this up to here, like that character is twice as long as, or twice as tall as the starting point. But yeah, you do these kinds of things with these arcs. Yeah, so he like bounces up in here. Yeah, I have no idea what kind of rig this is, but yeah. So these are the arcs that you want to follow. Then you want to make these shapes with the body to help your animation flow a little bit better. So yeah, those are the arcs that I'm talking about. Let me go back to the presentation. And follow through. So this is this can come in a number of ways. So when you do like a really powerful attack animation, I think fighting games have this a lot, where like the delay between like the heavy punch and you being able to punch again in a lot of fighting games is longer because there needs to be like a longer recovery time. So the follow through should complement the action or the punch or whatever that is. I'm actually going to let I forget his name, but this guy talk about this concept more relevant to the side of game dev. I thought I would just put this in here since this is a game jam, to explain this type of idea that you might want to use if you have time to polish up your in-game animations for this competition. So I'm going to go ahead and let this guy explain.
This is how I did one of my first animations. So there's a character Z in the game League of Legends, and I started out in a pose A, and I hit my hit frame pose B, and I go back into A. And sure enough, this is boring, bland, repetitive. And but I see it time and again in a lot of games that people do this. It's actually pretty easy to fix. All you have to do is you have to find your C. Now, C is actually this one pose where you tell the story of the character. C is what makes this character completely unique. How heavy was the punch? How high was the jump? This is actually pretty easy to find out, and here we see it in action. So, both of these loops are 45 frames long, so the length. And on the left side, you see a very repetitive blend between A, B, and A. On the right side, you see the A, B, C, A. And this is unique. This is Z. Only Z is attacking this way in our game. And it makes it really easy for us to find character in the animation. So the next time you work on a loop, find your C. Responsive animations. Working on a game like League of Legends means that the moment a player hits a button, you immediately want a reaction on the screen. So how do you do that? I want to share 2 small tricks for that. The first one is that I learned you don't need a long blend. Like my first blends were like 7, 10, 12 frames. Didn't work out. It's not fun. Actually, I will show a 2-frame blend in a second. And so if you are starting out in game animation, feel free to cut into your animations. You'll be surprised what you can get away with. The second one is something that at first made no sense when I learned it. And that is that we put the anticipation at the end of the cycle. So this is how it works. The player hits the button. Immediately, we fire off the arrow. And then the anticipation to put up a new arrow. Now, this is what happens in the player's mind. The player sees, oh, you put up a new arrow. Well, guess next time you can fire it off immediately. It is actually a mind trick that works really well. Let's look at that in animation, in motion. So here's my 2-frame blend, and the anticipation is at the end.
So it looks like he's drawing
it again.
there already at the end of the animation.
There's the 2-frame blend, and then the anticipation is at the end. So the next time you have to work on a very repetitive animation, not repetitive, a very responsive animation, I highly recommend that you try it out to put the anticipation at the end, and you see what you can get away with.
Yeah, so those 2 things are incredibly pertinent to game dev. Yeah, you really want... You've seen this video before? Yeah, this is a pretty well-known trick in the industry where you put it at the end so that way you get that 2-frame blend super fast, right? And it looks like not much has changed. Like you're not jumping animations a lot. So yeah, there's that. Squash and stretch. Okay, so this is going to be something that I do a lot, actually. I have this site pulled up. It's just timo.gg. These are the models and later on animations from League's, the game of League of Legends, right? So it's like a top-down game. This is mostly like the camera angle that you see throughout the game. But like there is so much squash and stretch going on here to make you feel like the character's coming out of the screen. So just to look at this first animation, if I look at it from the side and I slow it down, you can see like at the points where this weapon is about to hit, it actually enlarges, right? So this is the exaggeration that I'm talking about. This is the normal size. And then as it attacks, if I can scroll down over here, how do I do this? Okay. What is that, like 1.5 times? Just to emphasize that hit, right? And then it goes back down to the normal size. So there are small tricks like this that animators will employ to make their animations feel super good. This is a crit animation, just another heavy attack, I think, or basically a heavy attack, right? Where she deals extra damage in the game, and this is what you would see from the top down. But animators like to do tricks. So if I take it from, this is gonna make no sense, by the way. If I take it from the side over here, these are the actual frames that you see from the side. Like, there's a super stretch, and it doesn't look like much from up here because you're not really seeing everything down there. But the mass that is her head and like the top of her body enlarges, and it makes it feel like she's coming out of the screen, even though you're just seeing it from the top down. As she comes down, like these are super dirty. You can't even see this, but like these poses were her scythe. I don't even know what this is, but it gets like super large just so that you can see the arc from the arc from the side view is still pretty all right. Like it goes from here to around here, right? But that so that when you see it from up here, which is like where the camera is going to be, you get this really nice arc. And actually this top part right here, it's like kind of a smear since it enlarges. Yeah. So these small things, these are like the fundamentals that they employ to make these attack animations look really, really cool. I mean, if we go and look at some of the really old ones, what's a really old character? Like they don't have nearly as many of these fundamentals baked into these animations, and as a result, they don't really look as cool. Just to be completely honest. Let's take a look at this bird character. Articuno from Pokemon. Yeah, there's like no squash and stretch on this guy. And as a result, the attack animation doesn't look as poppy and as energetic as it could. Like, she's just flapping her wing. Let me see if there's anything else that we can do. Yeah, okay, she does a swirl for the crit animation. But yeah, these don't have... I mean, these are still really good arcs. Yeah, see it moves in that circle shape. Actually, you know what? Let me bring up another character that's maybe a biped. It's a little bit easier to tell. I think Caitlyn has really old animations. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So this character, let's see what the attack animation is. Why is there 60? I don't even know what's going on. Okay, yeah. There's not as much squash and stretch on this one. But if we look at another character, hold on, this is going to be the last one, I promise. These are so cool to look at, though. Sometimes I just look at these when I'm bored and just try to learn from them. Let's see. Let's do Set. This is a super new character. He does mostly punches, I believe. And yeah, like it feels like he's hitting hard, right? You slow it down, you get some really wacky frames. Like I think this is also where the memes where the if you like slow down the some of the Overwatch highlight clips, McCree's face is like stretched from the top to the bottom of the screen. Yeah, so they stretch this character and see it like they stretch the character 1, 2. They get this really nice arc going on the body. Makes it look like they're hitting really hard. And then slowly go back, blends back to idle. Let me see what else does this guy have. I'm gonna be honest, I played this character like once. Yeah, so he gets this arc going again with the body right here. And then as he hits, this hand gets super big. It looks really funny when you're viewing it from these angles, but from the top down perspective, it looks good. And especially when you don't break it down frame by frame, it just looks like it's hitting hard. So yeah, these small tricks animators will use to cheat and to make it look like the character is hitting harder than what he actually is. If you try to do like a frame by frame recreation of your reference footage, it's going to look really slow. It's going to look really boring, and it's going to look like the character doesn't have that much energy. And that's just kind of how it is when you try to put straight from reference, like frame by frame, into your animation. It doesn't quite have the same energy. So you have to do these kinds of things. You have to use these fundamentals to get your animation to pop like that. All right. So, okay. That's mostly all the high-level stuff / animation fundamentals I want to talk about. Now I'm going to go through and kind of show you what I do when I am setting up a scene. Drag this over to here. Okay, so this is just a clean Maya scene. The only thing that I did was I'd set the project window so that I don't have to go through like my main like C root every time I want to import something. But there. Okay, so if anyone in here is in ATech, I don't think the professors go over this. They kind of gloss over this. So this is very important actually. So when you have a rig, I'm gonna bring up the Kanoichi rig, right? You don't want to just straight import it, because when you import it, it's gonna take that however many megabyte file and literally just plop it into your scene, right? So you don't really need all that. Also, what you can do, actually, let me just show you this. Import. Go to my rigs. All right, so this is a 13 megabyte file. You know, which isn't that much, but like, you still don't need to do this. You can keep your Maya file scene or scenes super light. I guess it also takes a little while to import. And you can accidentally start deleting stuff. This has happened to me where in the past I like set a keyframe on something and I don't really like it, and instead of deleting the keyframe, I just come over here and delete this thing. Yeah. And now this thing doesn't even have a control anymore. You're like super screwed at this point, right? Because like, say you don't even notice it the first time that you download or that you deleted it. You keep on animating, you're doing your thing, right? And then somewhere down the line, like 30 frames later, you're like, wait, I need to move the hand. I actually don't really like where the pose was. And then you come over here and you're like, wait, where did it go? Oh no. And then you kind of lose just a lot of time. I mean, in my case, I can Control Z this because I literally just did this. But yeah, don't do that. You want to reference things. Let me open up a new scene actually. Can I just Control Z all of this? I don't think so. But yeah, you don't want to do that because it really just slows down your scene. Oh god, and it just also crashes apparently. Here, hold on. That's okay. We're gonna not send that to Autodesk because I don't have the patience. I guess that's pretty good demonstration wise. That happened. That's pretty funny. All right, let me just force close this. So yeah, don't do that. Maya will be very upset with you. Just switch to this scene. Yeah, so what you want to do instead is import the rig by reference. And so what that means is that like you import it, but okay, half of you guys should be CS majors. It's like you're just giving it the data, like the location of the file. You're not actually like recreating the file in your scene. And for those of you who aren't CS majors, what this basically means is that you're kind of just bringing in the rig into your scene through a kind of like a read-only mode as well, so that you can't accidentally delete anything. So here, let me create this reference. Okay, these are my rigs. Kanoichi. All right, let's bring this one in. So actually, let me just do that again real quick. It was under File, Create Reference. And then I just tab over to my animation, go to my rigs, and click Reference. This way it kind of brings it in a sort of read-only mode. You can't accidentally delete anything. Super important. So now we have the rig. Wait, hold on. Yeah, so now we have the rig. Second thing I would probably do is go over here to create. Now just make a floor. That way I can see if the feet are touching the ground and all that. This is just going to be gray for now. Yeah, just to make sure that the feet are on the ground, all that stuff. but it's still kind of hard to tell where you're at. So what I like to do as well is I'll go up here. This is super scuffed, but this works, okay? I promise. Here's the second cube. I'll duplicate this a couple times. So this is at 0. I'll nudge this up, say, on the Z-axis, maybe by like 10 units. Go to the next one, nudge it up by 20 units. 30 units. 40 units that way, so it's kind of created a line here. And to make this easier to see, because they're all pretty small. I'm gonna go to my hypershade, which is like this texture editor, and just create a whole new texture for it. I'm just gonna use Lambert because it's the default. Let's make this green. Hold on, it's not behaving. All right, here we go. Okay. Just control select all this stuff, all these cubes right here, and right click, add materials to selection. So now I have a little bit better of an idea of like where in the entire scene that I'm at. And if I ever feel like I'm getting more lost, honestly, I will just come in here. I'll like duplicate 3 of them and just kind of place them around. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but it's just for you to get your bearings in this 3D space, because sometimes it's hard to tell where in this 3D space you are when you're looking through a 2D monitor. So yeah, this will help me navigate myself through 3D space. You would also want to create a camera. Currently, I actually use the Animation Lab camera that someone sent me. It's a nice Maya file. But you want to create your camera so that you know to what angle you're going to be posing to. So here is just like an example camera. Let's just do camera. And then when I go to perspective, this is gonna be my camera. This is what my camera currently sees. Yeah, but you set the camera angle for what you actually want, so you know kind of what to animate to. Let me just put this on the side a little bit. Yeah, because the posing is going to look different depending on which camera angle you choose and how you end up changing that throughout your shot. Sometimes you may end up like saying like, oh hey, I don't really want the camera to be over here, or I want the camera to be over here, and you have to change your posing again. But like I said, if you work a lot of that stuff out in the timing phase or in the blocking phase, you'll spend less time trying to readjust your posing. So yeah. And then the last thing that's a little bit more technical that I want to go through is how I deal with reference. Reference footage is really important because it helps you. It's basically just like a key to tell you what's going on with your character, how the forces of physics are acting on them. And it's especially important if you're doing a lot of very body mechanics heavy shots. This is... So I don't actually have anything prepared in terms of reference footage, so I will bring in instead... Here, hold on. I'm going to bring in just one of those videos that we saw earlier. I'm going to switch this over to... You never actually want to bring in a reference video through perspective because it's gonna lay it flat against the camera, which can look really funky. Actually, you know what? Let me just demonstrate that. Here's my movie file. Let's do this Twitter one. Oh god. Yeah, so it just kind of brought it in, if you can see on the side view, like at this angle, because that's what the camera angle's at. So don't actually do that. You want to come to one of these orthographic views, and then you just do the same thing, import movie. Go to my workshops. Hold up. It's right here. Import this in here. Okay. Actually, this might be a better example because, okay, so first like 60 seconds of this is like black, right? You want to start your animation on like frame 1 or frame 2 or whatever, right? That's an issue. How do you do that? Well, there's a frame offset key that you can use to make sure that it starts earlier or later. If you want to offset it by 5, it's going to start just a little bit earlier. But there's actually something way cooler that you can do with this reference footage. Okay, so this is frame extension attribute over here. Tells you what frame it's on, right? And it increases linearly with my timeline. As I scrub through, I'm on frame 48. So this one's on frame 48, of course, right? You can actually change this. This is something I wish some of the professors would go over, but it's a little bit more technical. So I'm going to go over here and break the connection. Basically, what that means is that it's no longer going to be automatically driven by my timeline. So break the connection. See how it instantly changes back to 1, right? And it doesn't move anymore. It doesn't. There's nothing driving this attribute. Nothing asking it to change. So we're gonna ask it to change manually. I'm gonna key select it. I'm gonna key this attribute. Turns red. Then click in here, and now you see that I have a keyframe in my graph editor and also on my timeline. I'm not sure what frame this goes up to, so let me just set this to 120. Okay, there we go. There's a couple things that you need to do to treat this though. This is not a linear progression. So you need to adjust that. Where's the button? Right here. So now it's linear. So now this changes along with my timeline, just like it used to, right? Actually, does this start at frame 60? Okay, so you can key which frame you actually want it to be, just kind of by force. So this actually starts at frame 60, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to insert keyframe. This right click, I highlight the curve, insert keyframe. I'm just going to bring this up to 60. So now it starts at 60. All right. And from 60 it rises linearly, so it's got like the regular playback, right? Actually, I don't even need this to be here. I can just sometimes when you hit delete on these graphs, I don't really know why, but all your keys disappear. Don't worry. I just click back into it. I just click this thing and then I click this attribute and it shows up again. Okay, yeah. So let me bring this frame 60 over to frame 1. And now with the linear playback, you can see that it plays kind of just normally. But you can actually choose which frames you want. So say I determine that this is, okay, obviously this is a keyframe because this is it's a starting point. That's the beginning of the video. That's your beginning pose and whatnot. And then say I want like this super stretched thing to be posed to be another keyframe. I can highlight the curve, insert key, boom, right? And then I'll go through and I'll select like, okay, maybe this is another keyframe because he's like super stretched again. I'll go through. Actually, to be fair, I think all of these should be keyframes. This guy's got a lot of work done in here. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm just gonna set a couple of keys, right? So like, these are what I determined to be keyframes, right? What I do to speed up my process when I'm in the blocking phase is I will do this, right? And then I will set it to, you can either set it to stepped mode where it only plays the keyframes that you've selected, right? So it looks like that now. And you can also, what I like to do, so I don't have to spend so much time scrubbing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I will just put these keys like right on top of each other. So like that's frame 1, frame 2. And I'll come over here. Just to frame 3, frame 4, 5, 6, and so on. This way, when you're working through the blocking, you don't really have to worry about the timing in this case. You can just worry about the poses. But this is a little bit different workflow from what I said previously. This still works though. This is really good for not necessarily action shots, but for acting shots, where there's not necessarily a lot of body motion. Because honestly, like this guy has, I feel like every other frame in this video should be a keyframe, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm not doing that. But for acting, when you go pose to pose, this is really good for you to be able to see the main idea without getting way too bogged down in the overlap and all the other stuff that should come later, more in the polishing phase and less in the blocking. And this is also what I do to keep myself focused. So I'll just like poses from my reference footage and then just put them right next to each other. Yeah. And if you're like too worried about overlap, I still wouldn't like draw these keys out and try to do the overlap. Like I think you just, if you're doing like an acting shot, I think you just need to make better poses. So yeah, this is just a small technical thing that not a lot of people know about, but is super, super helpful. I can actually show you what something looks later down the line. Let me show you. This is just a quick thing that I was doing. What's this one? We don't need to save that. Okay, but this is another demonstration. This is some nerd stuff, okay? Also, I haven't actually seen Naruto. This is just, I just thought this was cool, okay? So this person was doing like a, I don't know what it's called, like those Naruto hand signs. I was like, I saw this and I was like, yo, this is super cool. I'm animating this. But yeah, this video is in the step mode. Like these aren't all the frames that you can see, right? When I play it back, it looks super funny. But I have it in the step mode and I have all the keys right next to each other so that I can focus on getting the hand posing to be correct with the reference video. So just to focus in and really, really speed up your timeline. And I don't have this, I don't even have to have this up to 120. I can just set this to what, like frame 30? Yeah, frame 30. And just makes it makes like each individual frame like a little bit easier to click too when I'm working, and just small stuff like that make it really nice for me to be able to animate quickly. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much the end of this demonstration. A little tricks that I know that speed up my workflow. Some of you might have noticed that I have a little toolbar down here that looks pretty cool. Let's go back to the presentation. I will explain what those are. Okay, so these tools, that toolbar you just saw is called AnimBot, okay? This is a plugin that's just chock full of animation tools. Professor Caldwell recommended this to me initially, and I have been using this for just under a year now. It's like just under or just about, if you want the Pro, you don't have to get the Pro, but you can just get the Eco. It's pretty much the same thing. Just make sure that when you download it, you get the, okay, hold on. Don't actually download that. You get the updated version, because some of these versions are like just 1.0. But this is a really, really, really useful tool set for animating. There's a bunch of really cool tools in here. Actually, I'm just going to play this video so you can see what I'm saying. There is stuff like this where you can nudge keys back and forth. You can nudge certain sections back and forth. You can blend it back to default. You can blend to neutral. You can blend to 0. You can tween in between. You can add oscillations. All this stuff, if you wanted to do without this tool, would just take longer. And this, honestly, this tool saves me so much time. There's even more complex stuff where you can mirror animations and you can gimbal lock is always going to be an issue, but you can mirror animations. You can simplify your curves. It makes it super easy to transfer animation from one scene to another, which I've used I think I used that. I've definitely used that feature just like even today, working on my Survivor stuff. There's a lot more complex tools in here that I don't really have time to talk about, but it's just super, super useful. And if you're an animator, I would highly recommend AnimBot to you. That's my first tool recommendation. Second is this site called SyncSketch. We saw it here where I was showing you this animation where I was able to play through frame by frame. Not only can you do frame by frame playback, right, which is super helpful, but you can send these sync sketch links to people and they can give you critiques on your animation. So actually we can take a look at, yeah, I can upload reference footage and I can draw over it. Where is the one that I'm looking for? Okay. I sent this to just a bunch of Discords online for feedback. And like people are able to comment on certain frames, leave comments down here, draw on your thing as well. So like specifically if there's something that they don't really like with the hand posing, they can like draw over this, they can highlight it. There is a lot of really good features for this sync sketch tool. And I also, this is one of the things I use all the time. So I'd highly recommend doing this. It makes it, this site also makes it super easy to get critique, because the person giving critique doesn't have to specify like on which frame maybe it is and like around which time. It can tell you exactly when it was that they thought the problem or the really good thing was, and give you feedback just on this website without having to do anything else. So it just really streamlines that process, and you're probably gonna get more critiques that way as well. That's my second tool recommendation. Okay, we're almost done here, I promise. Last couple things. Resources. These are just a couple of YouTubers that I like that have really good videos on the more technical aspects of Maya or do like animation analysis clips. And the GDC Tricks of the Trade is where I pulled this talk from. So these are really good archives, just chock full of animations. Twitter, I use Twitter a lot just because there's a lot of animators on there. Listed here are just some people I really like. John Yang, Martin Chang, and Frame by Frame stuff, all really good work. And lastly, these are some of the Discords that I think are really helpful. You can add HackUTD to that list, but I don't really know I didn't know what the the URL was. But yeah, Animation Guild, we have a Discord where we get feedback and we do critiques and stuff like that. SGDA also has a huge Discord, and UT EGADS is pretty much just like UT's version of SGDA. And they have also a pretty sizable Discord if you're looking for critiques, looking for people to work with. You know, like these are definitely helpful. All right, and yeah, that pretty much concludes my talk. Does anyone have any questions? Sheridan, are you still there?
Me.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. You have any of the questions from the doc that you wanted to ask me, or?
Yeah, I'll throw out some of the questions from the doc as we wait for people
to
throw questions in the chat. Let's see. Oh, I did want to ask, how long did it take you to develop your current skill set?
Okay. It's a hard question. I think like this is a hard question because it's not like a linear progression, right? Sometimes you'll do something and you do a shot and you're like, oh my god, I'm just the best. I'm just built different, right? You're really feeling yourself. And sometimes you do shots where you're like, oh my god, I literally cannot animate this guy walking up the stairs. What is wrong with me, right? But I don't know. I feel like everything that I've done, starting from the beginning, like took me like at this point like 4 years to get to this point. I did start out in the first 2 semesters as a CS major, but like pretty much 4 years to get to this point. I think that one of the biggest things is just being able to utilize the internet and the vast, like the swaths of information that are available to you on YouTube or on like websites that you find. There's a lot of stuff that you have to kind of look for yourself. Yeah.
Linois said, oh my gosh, an hour flew by.
Yeah, for me too, actually. I thought this was going to be a little bit shorter, but I went on. Hopefully the outline that I provided like I said, provided a little bit more structure to my rambling. But yeah. Dude, I
for sure.
legit, this Timo.gg website, sometimes I just go here and just like thumb through these frame by frame to see if I can find anything new.
Yeah, I think that's a major resource that will help. Like,
Yeah.
whether there's people who are watching for the game jam or just in general, like, I feel like I would use that even though I'm not an animator, just to draw, like, just to practice those arcs and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like real professional work that's like in the game. And also for certain places, they want you to animate in their style, or they want to know like that you can do it. So if you go here and you like kind of break it down, you can see like what Riot kind of wants and what they kind of want to see on your demo reel.
Yeah. Oh, I did have another question.
Mhm.
How do you build reference for your work?
Okay.
If you want to show any of that by chance.
Here, let me see if I have any on hand. The way that I build reference is I'll take inspiration from games, I'll take YouTube videos, and I'll stitch them together. And then I will try to find the missing pieces between those videos to figure out like what I want to do. Sometimes I won't even really take a lot of the timing from the reference. So for this guy, this is like kind of an example. This is super complex, but also very fun to do. Sometimes I'll just go through, I'll pop like a certain section of this video into Sync Sketch, and then just like thumb through frame by frame to see like what I can get in terms of poses. So like this one, maybe I would simplify to where like his leg is stretched down on the ground, his arm is like still kind of fully extended. Like I'll just try to extract certain poses from the reference footage. There's also some stuff where, here, let me see, where you just want the essence of like what's moving. So for that, on my demo reel, there is a shot of one of the ninja characters like throwing a kunai at the screen, right? For that one, let me see. All right, ignore the mess. That is my room, okay? For that one, I just did myself doing this spin just so that I could get like the rotation on the chest, how the elbow moves in first, and then it's the hand. The hand lags behind, leaving the pen up here, which is going to be the kunai, and then the follow through that like moves the shoulder up and down through each frame. And to get those kind of details where like it would I could be able to do this without reference, but it's just so much faster, so much smarter to use reference, and save so much time too. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
Say so.
Yeah.
'Cause I just think it's important for people to know, like, not to be afraid to make reference like this.
Yeah,
Not
for
how
sure.
crazy you might look.
Yeah. Or how messy your room is. There is, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where the whole notion of like references cheating came from or anything like that, but like reference is super helpful. If you talk to any of the animators in industry, they use a ton of reference. Just establish the timing. Actually, especially for cinematic stuff where it needs to be like very, very detailed. There's a lot of animation that uses reference. Actually, here, let me see if I can go on Twitter and find some of the examples that I'm thinking of. Okay. My animation feed is pretty much entirely animation, so it might take me a little while. Are there any other questions?
I can throw one together. I think, oh yeah, I was also going to ask how long it takes you to finish a single fight cycle.
Okay. That Halo fight cycle probably took me... Total time was maybe like 2 months to finish from start to finish. Yeah, it was a lot of like iterating back and forth and trying to find the right poses and trying to get the timing right. And also, like, that was before I really established this kind of workflow, where I do the timing and I like try to figure out the timing first. Okay, that's awkward. It's not playing. Yeah, I try to find the timing out first and then do the rest of the details. I'm sure that if I went back and did it now, it would probably take me about half as long. But yeah, those shots take a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever done like, I guess for like a game fight cycle?
Mm-hmm.
How long would one of those take, would you say?
For
like a single character.
Depending on how complex it is, it take like maybe like a day for blocking, a day or two for blocking, another one for polish, and another one to just like make sure that everything's super polished and timing is correct. So maybe like just a couple days, I guess. But that's me trying to be like super thorough. There's some stuff that you can. There is some stuff that you can just throw together in a couple hours. But yeah, most of the stuff that I try to make is for my demo reel, and thus I'm trying to be a little bit more thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah. See if there's anything else in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, so far it's been pretty quiet.
Okay. Yeah, that hour went by real fast.
I know, it really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap it up if you would like, because
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get any questions unless
Anyone else is.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see. Okay, yeah. I guess that's about it. If I'm gonna plug anything, it's gonna be just my Twitter, or my Twitch, because sometimes I'll like stream myself animating on Twitch. But also on Twitter, like I said, there's a bunch of really good really good animators that post. I'm actually gonna send the link to these slides in the chat, so that if anyone wants to take a look at the hyperlinks that I have, they can. Let's see, one sec. Pop this into the chat. Where is? Here it is. Oh yeah, those. Okay, so that's a link to the Google document. If you guys want to take a look at the links that I have hyperlinked right here, and also just Anabot, Sync Sketch, just to make things easier. Yeah, I think that's about it. Does anyone else have any questions? Is Camden still here?
Camden. He's busy.
Busy, I see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time.
Of course. I appreciate you guys having me and letting me do this talk. Hopefully you guys learned something.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure learned something, so I like to imagine that everybody else will. Maybe come back to revisit this talk and use all these tools.
For sure. There's a couple other things I haven't wanted, or that I wanted to go over that wasn't able to this time, but if this ever happens again, 100%, I got you guys, okay?
Sweet. I will definitely keep that in mind.
Yep.
I'm going to hold you to that. This is recorded info.
All right, yeah, just sign. I'm ready to sign the document right now. Yeah.
Linois and Nicholas say thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so I think that's gonna be the end of the stream. You guys have a nice game jam. Good luck and have fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for showing up.